Well, it turns out Nancy Pelosi isn't the only one out there shocking the other side. Once again, Trump is keeping his promises. We all know how much that annoys people, and here is proof. How Trump is filling the liberal Ninth Circuit with conservatives. People were afraid when he got elected. I could just end the sentence there, couldn't I? People were afraid when he got elected that he would be, because he was a Democrat for a long, long time, that when he came in, he wasn't going to live up to the conservative promise. And to the contrary, he's been as conservative as Ronald Reagan, or some argue more conservative than Ronald Reagan. Times change. It's hard to say. All right, let's look at this. A bastion of liberalism in the federal judiciary is slowly turning rightward, threatening Democratic court challenges on everything from abortion to who gets a green card. I'm tempted to just keep rereading that, but I'm going to trust you that it's sinking in. If the trend continues of Trump adding conservatives to the court, it represents a major shift in the liberal wing of the judiciary, meaning lawsuits for progressive causes won't find a friendly ear as easily as they have. The circuit has been the go-to venue for activist state attorneys eager to freeze Trump policies on healthcare, immigration, and other social issues. It ruled against Trump's weakening of Obamacare's contraceptive mandate, as well as multiple versions of his travel bans. It's also been overturned by the Supreme Court, not just in Trump's era, but in all eras, more than any other district court when it was ran exclusively by the liberals. That's slowing down now, but yet when the progressives and the liberals raise their head to go, no, you can't do that because we say so, the Supreme Court goes, yeah, I kind of can, so stop that. Chris King of the liberal group Demand Justice, who oversaw the selection and vetting of judicial nominees in Obama White House, said the calculus could change with having all the conservatives coming in. Now listen to what King said, who is from the liberal group Demand Justice, who oversaw the selection and vetting of judicial nominees for Obama. Oh, Republicans politicize the judiciary so they can accomplish policy goals they wouldn't be able to do through the democratically elected branches of government, he said. How many times have you heard or thought, oh my God, every single thing that the Democrats say that the Republicans are doing, the Republicans actually are not doing, but OMG, the Democrats are doing. This example, this quote right here, fits into that concept 100%. Oh, Republicans politicize the judiciary so they can accomplish policy goals that they wouldn't be able to do through the democratically elected branches of government. I invite you to do some evidence scanning on that. Go back and look at what Republicans support and what's been put forward to the people and how that turned it out in elections. And then compare that to what the Democrats want and how often that's been put to the people and won through the elections. And when you're done with that tedious task, then compare that to what the Republicans, according to what Mr. King said, where they had to just use the Supreme Court to force it through. And then, now get ready for a long exercise, then compare that to the left wing doing that. Like I said, that's going to be a very long exercise because the left is completely famous for this. There's no, I don't want to say no, there's very, very little evidence that Republicans politicize the judiciary to force things through. Liberals and progressives brag about it. They brag about it nonstop. So King is trying to fool you, but we are not fooled around here. Outside conservative groups say the changing court will reduce the odds of liberal foes of the president filing challenges with like-minded activist judges eager to freeze his agenda, and then having to be overturned in the Supreme Court, which takes an extra few months. I mean, it's like in California, the rule is, oh, we don't really care if it's legal when we pass these laws because it's going to take 7 to 10 years to undo it. So in that 7 to 10 years, we got what we wanted. And laws change anyways as time goes on. That's liberal progressive thinking, and more importantly, that's liberal progressive actions. Forum shopping will be less attractive now that you have a basically balanced bench as far as Republican or Democratic nominees, said Katie Glenn. Whereas Daniel Goldberg, a legal director of the Liberal Judicial Advocacy Group, notice its advocacy here, demand justice there. There's a huge difference between the parties. That people say, oh, the Republicans and Democrats are saying, you're not paying attention if you think that. Pay a little closer attention, you're going to discover, no, the Liberal Judicial Advocacy. In other words, we want the courts to do what the people won't do. Remember what up there where it just said that Republicans do that? Daniel Goldberg is from the Liberal Advocacy Group Alliance for Justice, stressed that beyond the numbers, Trump has appointed nominees with strong ideological views. Okay, if you're part of a liberal judicial advocacy group, are you trying to tell us that you don't want strong ideological views on the court? Or you just don't want strong ideological views that aren't from the left? And that's how that works out. The changing composition of circuits like the Ninth may ultimately galvanize liberals to push an aggressive judicial agenda of their own, further polarizing the courts. Is there any evidence in what I just shared with you and in your own personal life experience that makes you think there was ever a moment in historical American history that the liberals weren't pushing an aggressive judicial agenda of their own? Please, someone put that in the comments. The moment that happened and how long it lasted. Anywhere in American history where liberals weren't pushing an aggressive judicial agenda of their own. To think that that will become a new thing is to be blind to 200 plus years of American history. The asymmetry in temperament is what causes the problem, said John Michaels at UCLA, a UCLA law professor. Well, that makes total sense that asymmetry would cause problems. We have a quite forceful right flank buttressed by a left flank that prizes judicial, I can't read this with a straight face, a left flank that prizes judicial humility and, this is so hard to read, and judicial modesty. Please, where is the evidence of that? Did we not just read at the beginning of this article that the Ninth Circuit is the one that's constantly railing and making stuff up that has to get overturned? If you consider that humility and modesty, you clearly don't own a dictionary. As progressives think about what the public interest should be, it's not just winning the next court battle, but it's about what their representatives should think about in reshaping the judiciary when they're in the majority. And that is another difference between the left and the right. Because the left have had the courts for so long, they just kind of took it for granted. Kind of like how the left takes for granted black votes. Hey, 93% of the vote, we can do whatever we want to you. And they do. We'll see how that works out in 2020 for them. Because as Donald J. Trump said back in the campaign for 2016, what the blank do you got to lose if you try me? Well, they did try him, some unwillingly, and they have the lowest unemployment rate in history. That worked out pretty good. In other words, they have more jobs, more money, and more freedom, because with money comes freedom. Don't believe me? Get rid of all your money and see what you're able to do. No lunch, no breakfast, no rent, no car, no gas, no bus. Yeah, money's important. And finally, from the article, Kang's take is that Democrats should adopt the GOP strategy when they next control the Senate and executive branch, nominate more ideological judges, and then add seats to the court. And then add seats. So not only is he saying nominate more ideological judges, do you remember the introduction? This was talking about how it's already the left wing, the left flank. They've already done that. Check that off. But then you get to the magic moment where, and then add seats to the court. If we can't win by the rules, then we don't have to follow your rules. We'll just invent new rules. The left always does that. Remember, conservatives are for law and order. Conservatives are for being conservationist, maintaining either the status quo, or somebody said the other day, I don't actually agree with this, but I'm going to quote it anyways because it's kind of an interesting quote. Conservatives want what was popular 15 years ago. It's like, okay, that's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah. So nominate more ideological judges and then add to, and so again, over and over and over again, and you can see this all throughout 2019. You're constantly hearing, let me not narrow that down to just 2019, but it's because they're recapping the prior years. Trump didn't win. No, Russia put him in. George Bush didn't win. No, the Supreme Court put him in. Never. Oh, Stacey Abrams, she won. Never, ever are conservatives, or even just milquetoast Republicans, allowed to win according to the left, which includes the media. No, they always cheated to get their side. And when they lose, they say, well, we'll just rewrite the rule book then. We'll just add seats to the court to make sure that our side doesn't have to worry about your side creeping up on it, because we're just going to keep stuffing the courts. Now, my final point about this. This takes you all the way through the article. Clearly, I didn't read the whole thing because that's not what I'm going to need to do in this one. But if you do read it, the one thing that's missing from this entire article is the concept that the law is unideological. Nowhere in this whole story is it ever alluded to, mentioned, hinted at, foreshadowed that maybe just the law is the law, and you don't have to have an ideological lens to say, this is what it says, do it, or don't do it, depending on what the law is. It's not in here. And the idea that it's not even addressed in an entire article that's based on the importance of the court, of somebody not just raising their hand and saying, but why can't we just do what it says in the law? Thou shalt not. Thou shalt. Thou shalt not. Thou shalt. The idea that all of our laws are that confusing, well, if that's true, then shame on us for passing laws that are so confusing. But many of them aren't. I understand there are a bunch that are confusing, but typically those aren't the laws that are confusing. It's the regulations, which Trump is working on, but that's a different video. So anyways, that's the video for this one. The Ninth Circuit is changing towards more conservative. The liberals are up in arms. They want to add more people to make sure that they can always have their side, and they want you to believe that their advocates, their demands for justice were never, ever to have their side win a strong ideology. That's only the Republicans that can do that.